Welcome to another edition of the Effective Living Series. This is your leadership development springboard to set you off for the year 2022. It's on City TV Breakfast Daily and also on the City Breakfast Show. My name is Bernard Avile. This is our third week of the series, and this week we're talking about professional building or building professionally in the face of layoffs, COVID-19 and shutdowns. How do you equip yourself to excel in your profession? Today we're talking about leading self in a new world of work. And I have a leadership development coach. She's worked in the corporate world for over 2 decades. She's been on this show before, and we are glad to have her back, Doreen Baffoe. She is the founder of her own leadership training organization, Branch Out Africa. Doreen, good to have you.
Good to be here again, Bernard.
How are you doing?
Fantastic.
So you've been working in the corporate world for 2 decades. You started your own foundation, Branch Out Africa. What do you guys do?
So I started Branch Out Africa in 2013, actually.
Oh, okay.
Then as a side gig.
Okay.
As things were changing all around me. And I felt that one sport could not give me everything I was looking for. So then that's when Branch Out Africa started. There's a whole story behind it, but that's for another day. But Branch Out Africa is essentially to equip leaders or individuals to first lead themselves and then lead others as things change around them. So it's about ownership. It's about curiosity, and it's about development. So
this is for both individuals and corporates?
Yes.
Amazing. Yes. Today I want you to talk about leading self in a new world of work. So maybe I want you to start by talking about self-leadership. Then we'll talk about the new world of work. Then you tie everything together.
Absolutely.
So when we talk about self-leadership, what does it mean? What's the definition?
So there are different definitions, Bernard, to self-leadership. Some call it personal mastery. I will quote one of such definitions, but no matter the one that you pick, you realize that self-leadership speaks to, first, a discovery of who you are, what you do, how you do it, and how you're able to master all of that to get what you want to get in the near future. So it talks about there's some bit of knowing some internal conversation or internal ownership, but because you don't live and work on your own, it brings in the external perspective as well. So I know myself, I know my strengths, I know my experience and the credibility that I have built over the period. But I know what I also am looking for in the near future. How do I marshal all of this to get what I want? And the bridging or the bridge between where I am and where I want to get to, then you talk about communication, emotional intelligence, and influence are some of the skills that you will use to bridge the gap between where you are and where you want to get to.
So self-leadership sort of starts with self-awareness.
It does.
Knowing who you are, knowing your strengths, also understanding your experience. Before then, it also includes knowing a bit about your environment.
Absolutely. If you don't mind, I'll share one of my favorite definitions with you. It's by Bryant and Kazan in the book Self-Leadership. And it says self-leadership is having a developed sense of who you are, what you can do, where you are going, coupled with the ability to influence your communication, emotions, and behavior on the way to getting there.
Can you repeat that?
All right. So it's by Bryant and Kazan in their book Self-Leadership. Was published in 2012. And it says self-leadership is having a developed sense of who you are, what you can do, where you are going, coupled with the ability to influence your communication, emotions, and behavior on the way to getting there.
Wow, that's quite deep. So it's quite a long definition.
So who you are, what you can do, where you are going. Those three are very important. Who you are,
what you can
do,
and where you are going.
And then to be able to get there, you need to have the ability to influence, communicate, manage your emotions and behavior to get you there.
Wow, that's quite exhaustive.
It is.
That's quite exhaustive.
But you remember when I spoke about internal knowing me and where I currently am? So this is one circle that speaks to where I am. And then the other circle that speaks to where I'm going.
Okay.
And then in between, it's managing my emotions, my behavior, my ability to communicate and influence. Because I will need support to be able to get there. And I will need to get there with other people as well.
All right. This is the Effective Living series, and we're talking about self-leadership, its role and its importance in helping you adjust to the modern world of work. And my guest is Doreen Baffoe. She's a leadership development strategist, I want to call it, just a consultant. He's given us a very exciting definition of self-leadership, which has, I think, 6 parts: who you are, what you can do, and also talks about how that affects your influence, your communication, and emotional intelligence, and a whole lot of things. Okay, so what does this mean in practice for people who want to develop self-leadership? And before we come into the world of work dimension, this is a long definition. There are dimensions to self-leadership. What does knowing this mean for you in your journey towards doing well in your career?
All right, and that's a very good question. But to be able to have a conversation as things change around us, to say, okay, our organization is changing, my role is changing, but this is how I see myself in the new space we're getting into. You must understand what it is that you bring to the table. It's almost like going to a buffet or walking into a place where people are dining, and you say, oh, I'm really hungry. And then the host says, well, what would you like to eat? And you're like, me, I don't know. But the conversation on self-leadership just gives you a guide on, okay, over the period of my life, no matter how long I've been in corporate Ghana or no matter how long I have worked, no matter the experiences, this is what I know about myself. This is what I think I want in the near future. And that is subject to change as you begin to bring in the external factor and as the world changes. But now, this is what I know about myself. These are my strengths. These are my abilities. This is what I have learned over the journey of my career. And I surmise that going into this new world where our industry is going, this is what I can do. So I'm ready to bring myself. I'm curious enough to want to find out what that change is about, but I'm also ready to learn, and learning for me is modification of behavior. I'm ready to learn to get me to that new world of work, because if I know where I am now, then I can know what gaps it exists there, so that I can begin to build the skill set needed for that new world of work. So it's mindset plus skill set to get you to where you want to get to.
Wow. So you need to develop the right mindset.
Absolutely.
And the right skill set.
Absolutely.
To get you where you want to go to.
Where you want to get to.
So
and
there's
where you
mindset
want to get to,
and skill set.
Absolutely. And where you want to get to keeps changing.
Okay.
Because the world is not static. Things keep changing. A very interesting story. I was having a conversation with 2 young adults, one 22 and one 19.
Okay.
We're trying to get this 19-year-old to take a psychometric that gives an indication of what profession they'll be great at. But then the older brother, who is 22, says, I really don't want my sister fixated on a particular career or a particular job right now, because chances are when she graduates, all of that would have changed.
Just between the time of taking the test and graduation.
Absolutely.
Wow.
So you can imagine, because if that person had taken the psychometric like 10 years ago, probably there would have been nothing like a YouTuber, an influencer, and all of those things that we call now. So it's okay, getting a sense of these are my strengths, but how do I now transfer the credibility or my ability to be able to do those things into the new world of work?
Wow. And now we're told the world is now a VUCA world.
Bernard.
A lot of people keep saying that. VUCA.
Yes.
I don't even know what they mean.
They say volatile.
Volatile.
Uncertain. Complex and ambiguity.
Wow.
Ambiguous. So it's a VUCA world, they
say. I guess our question for today is how to develop the right mindset and skill sets in a VUCA world.
Yes.
To help you cope in a VUCA world.
In a world that keeps changing, right?
I'm sure you have a model to help us. What tools can we use then?
Absolutely. So, Bernard, what I'm going to share, the model I'm going to share is something I have developed myself over the last 20 years of my career.
Okay.
And what's interesting about my career, my journey, is that I haven't had, the ladder, that proverbial ladder people speak about. I haven't had that. I've had a lattice. Like if you take a Ludo box, I've jumped from one row to the other.
So it's a lattice, not a ladder.
No, I haven't had that. So I've worked in 6 different organizations in the last 20 years.
Wow.
And I've held about 7 or 8 unique roles.
Wow.
And I remember at one time when I interviewed for a particular job, I remember one of the people on the panel saying, your CV is all over the place. It's like you're not sure what you want to do. But I had been on this journey of self-leadership for a while. And so I had taken time to distill the strengths in that journey. And I said to him, on the contrary, 3 things are present in every role I have held. it's sales, it's service, and it's people development.
Okay.
If you put those three together, I really don't mind what you call the title of the role.
Wow.
I can handle it. And I think that's been my journey. So I have transitioned from one role to the other, in one organization to the other. And finally, I'm settling. I started Branch Out in 2013. But in October this year, I left corporate Ghana for good.
Wow.
To start to focus on Branch
So
Out.
after 7 years of doing Branch Out as a
side
gig.
As a side, as galamsey.
But I like the way you were able to isolate sales, service, and people over the 20 years.
Yes.
Sort of, you are very clear that whatever you do, these three are the top things.
Those three.
No matter what title you give the role.
And the titles have been very different. I mean, I have moved from I started as a customer service executive at DataBank, moved to head of settlements at DataBank, went in as a business development manager for SMEs at Barclays, then now ABSA, moved into senior branch managerial role, went to Central University to lecture in sales and marketing,
Wow.
came back to lead the contact center at Stanbic,
Wow.
moved to Bayport as the chief
Wow.
people and culture officer. So if you think about it, the roles very different.
Wow. Customer service, sales, people and culture role,
Yes.
all in the past 20 years.
Yes.
Lecturing as well.
Yes. But those three things have been
Stand out.
those ingredients are always there. There's an element of sales, which is influence if you think about it, communication and influence. The service, that's your relationship with the stakeholders. But there's also people development. I have one of my values is collective mindset. So I've been very keen on carrying people along with me on this journey. So one of my bosses puts it nicely. He says, Doreen gets her high from facilitating programs that help people grow. And I think it's true. That's for me my high. So anytime I went to that boss of mine, I said to him, I'm bored. He says, hey, let's find Doreen her opium.
You are so self-aware. Was that at what point in a 20-year journey did it become clear to you that these are your key areas?
So I want to give credit where credit is due. So as part of my journey, when I joined Barclays, now ABSA, I was taken on a program for leadership as a leadership coach. It was facilitated by the Hay Group in Kenya. And up until that time, I thought my journey was to become a corporate trainer. I had chanced on organizational development and had fallen in love with it. But coaching just opened my mind to, there's a whole world out there where, and again, it ties into what I believe in. So coaching always has the belief, or a coach has the belief that, as you said, Bernard, the solutions to whatever you face and lies within you.
Okay.
And I need to have a conversation with you using the skills I have learned in coach training to draw out that which already lies in there. So I need to come in with the mindset that this individual is well-resourced. If I take it from a Christian perspective, then I believe that there's God inside you. But if I take it from the secular perspective, it's the creative force inside you. But because your context differs from my context, I need to have that conversation, that professional conversation with you that draws that out from within you, so you have that aha moment. So credit to Barclays for the start of that journey. When I left that organization, it was a turbulent time in my professional and personal life. And so, given the experience I had on that that coach training at Barclays, I enrolled to train as a coach. This was in 2013. And although I enrolled to become a practitioner so that in my mind I could make money from it, I actually went to that training for myself. Because the healing that I needed to have the conversations that existed in my head, all the baggages I had carried as a child, growing up into with all the complexes and all the conversations you have about not being enough, about not knowing enough or having enough. I needed to go through that process to heal. And so by the time I was having the conversation on the three things or the three skills that I had mastered and had become my motivated skills, those things I do well. And others, I may not necessarily enjoy all of them, but these are the things I do well and I enjoy. I had taken the time to go through that journey. And so when you talk about being self-aware, yes, it was actually a journey for me.
Wow.
Started as a journey to make money. Turns out it was a journey I needed for myself.
It's incredible. So all of this helped you to now come up with a model that you are using to help other people and organizations.
Absolutely.
So I think we've understood a bit about the journey now. So the key question still remains: how do I develop the right mindset and the right skill set in this complex world to not just survive but to thrive in the world of work? So what is this model called? What are its components?
All right. So I'm going to share the model with you. So this model I first put together when I was a lecturer at Central University. One of my colleagues had asked me, I like how you do the things that you do. If I wanted to do things the way you do it, what would I need to do? And I had never really thought about how I did what I did. And so that simple question, we're driving, I was at the Mutual campus, and both of us lived in Accra. So that drive back to Accra got me thinking. And it didn't end there. You know, when sometimes somebody asks a question that reverberates, it just keeps going on, like ding in your head. That was that question for me. So I'm like, if I had to share with anybody, like a mentee, to live their lives in a similar model or fashion, what would I say? And so after thinking through it, I came on with this model. I call it the SACUM. So SACUM, and that's what I'm going to share today. SACUM.
The SACUM model.
Yes.
SACUM.
I like it.
Where S stands for what?
So S just says that you start with the grand purpose.
Start with the grand purpose.
Yes.
I see.
So the grand purpose for me, again, I'm quite spiritually inclined.
Yes.
So for me, the grand purpose talks about a relationship with your maker.
Yes.
I feel that in a world that things are constantly changing, you need something that grounds you. And for me, that's that relationship. So it comes there. I always start with that. And I often advise, or when I'm mentoring any group of people, I say, let's start with that. What are the things that ground you? So imagine for a moment, Bernard, that the ground on which you and I are sitting right now begins to move. What is it that will hold us firm? What grounds you? So anytime a coach talks about grounding, that's what it means for the individual. What are those things that holds you firm? And people have different things. Some say it's what refuels them. So for some, it's a combination of, for me, it's a combination of prayer, a combination of exercise, it's a combination of eating healthy. I also love breathing exercises, you know. So what are those things that you do that keeps you firm as the ground underneath you moves?
So that's the S.
That's
Starts with the grand purpose.
I call it the grand purpose because I say irrespective of who you are, race, creed, or anything, that is necessary.
Yes.
We do it in different ways, but let's start with that. So there are two components with that grand purpose. It's that relationship with a supreme being, but also stewardship.
Okay.
And stewardship represents for me, how do you live where the world around you better than you found it? And it means different things for different people because the world around us differs, is as unique as we come. So those two components for me would be the grand purpose.
Amazing.
A relationship with a supreme being, for me a relationship with God, and all those activities therein in that fellowship that keeps you grounded. Because the ground underneath us will continue to move. But what keeps you firm? What's it that keeps you firm as everything is moving?
Wow.
And then the second component of the S would be stewardship.
Stewardship.
How do you leave the world around you better than you found it? So in simple terms, it would be your relationship with all the other things that were created.
Wow.
You know?
So that's just the S.
That's the S.
What's the A?
So A, it's align this grand purpose or align your personal mission to the grand purpose.
Okay.
So if you look at the grand purpose as the entire, as something that all of us in the world are charged with, what we do within that grand purpose differs from individual to individual based on our unique strengths and abilities. And I often use the analogy of a beautiful farm, where on that farm there's every greenery you can think of, but then there's also wildlife. There are the fountains and all of that. And I say that although all of us have the grand purpose would be all of us taking care of that farm, but what we all do in that farm would differ from person to person. One person will fall in love with the wind and the direction in which it blows, and why we should plant the trees in a particular format so that when they bend, they don't break. One person will fall in love with the trees. What makes their leaves as green as they are?
Okay.
What is it that keeps their trunk steady? One person will fall in love with the soil. Another person will actually fall in love with the people who do the things within that grand farm. So your personal mission it's where we have the most conversation. Because now it's talking about you as an individual, your awareness, your experience, the journey you have been through, the story of your life. There's where you dig deep to say, okay, who am I? What do I bring to this party? And where am I going? So that's where we have that conversation. And when we are having that conversation, thankfully, we don't need to start from scratch. There are a lot of tools to guide us. And I'm happy you'll be speaking to Mami Ekuagezi on values.
Yes.
Because in that space, we talk about your values, what's important to you, and the story behind your values. Remember when I spoke about collective mindset being one of my key values? There's a story around it and why it's important for me and why I live my life the way I do. So we talk about all of those things that that focuses on the individual in that second space.
So that's the alignment.
Alignment
Of your personal mission with the grand purpose. What about the C?
The C, when we talk about the C, we are saying, okay, now let's talk about where you've chosen to live out your the grand purpose with your personal mission, or the things you discovered in your as part of your personal mission. So the C is your current context. Current context. Yes. So the current context is where you have chosen. So right now, Bernard, you have chosen to bring all of who you are to City.
I tell you.
So it's your current context. Here we ask very relevant questions. Okay. Because now we're moving from that internal space, which is your mindset, to what's happening externally. Yeah. What industry does City play in? What's happening in that? What's the outlook for the next 2 to 3 years?
Good question.
What are the regulatory conversations happening in that space? What are the ethical conversations happening in that space? So that's where we narrow down to your current context and equip you. So there, it's a lot of curiosity and learning to say, yes, I've chosen this space to apply, to live out my personal mission. What do I need to know so that I can be a relevant contributor in that space? Okay. So curiosity, what's changing in that space? What will my role look like in the next 2 to 3 years? Then what are the skill sets I need to be relevant? Who do I need to have a conversation with on those skills I need to be relevant in this current context? So the current context is where all the ambiguity, complexity, and change is happening. And this is you who is conversant with, who understands the grand purpose. Okay. Who knows how to stay firm as the ground is changing, but who is also taking time to discover themselves, their journey, and what they bring to the space. And is able to now go and have a conversation with, I can see my role is changing. So, what's happening? What's happening? What's happening? In this space, this is what I see happening. This is the role that I think I can play well in. And I want to be supported to acquire the skills that will take me, or that will make me deliver well. So that's your current context. That's your current context. And then there's a you. Yes. What does you means you, or what does a you mean? So in the you, we talk about understanding the roles that you play. Oh, understanding. Yes. Understanding the role that you play. So when we talked about the current context, we're looking at the organization in its broad sense. When we talk about understanding the role, it's not delving into your role, current role, and how to do well in it. So that when you're having a conversation on, when you're not, I like to use this analogy, sometimes in the corporate world, a manager is not, or a leader is not doing well with one of his staff members. And they can tell, hand on heart, they're just being genuine, that if this person were to find themselves in this space, they'll do better. But somehow this person's reputation hasn't done them justice. So when they go and have a chat with another leader to say, oh, by the way, Bernard, I want to move Asumesi to you because Bernard says, hey, you want to export your problems to me. Absolutely. And so I often say to the people I work with, I say, if you don't like your job, you do well in it so that you can move on. And doing well in your job means building the competence and character. So, when people talk about personal brand for the individual, we're just talking reputation and competence. So it's doing the things that make you attractive or make other people endear to you. So in understanding your current role, what will it take for you to succeed so that you can leverage on that to move on? But we also delve into the other roles that you play. Because as individuals, Bernard, it's not just City. They are a group of young individuals who who are a product of your workmanship, your children, that you need also to create time for. You're a father, you're a husband, you play different roles. You know, how do you now live that? How do you now live your the grand purpose and live a legacy in those roles? So that when we're done with all of this, you can find fulfillment in a world that is constantly changing, because your life is not just about work. So that's understanding the various roles that you play.
And then the M is what?
The M, it's one of my favorites.
Which is what?
Minister to the lives given.
Wow. Minister to the lives given.
Yes. And I'm talking about the stakeholders on your journey. And at work, it means different things to different people. So you know, when we defined self-leadership and communication, influence, your social and emotional skills we're talking about, this is where it comes into play so critically. Because your leader, the one you report to, wants specific things. They are as unique as you are. How do you now build a relationship that enables you guys to communicate and deliver on the same agenda that you're on actually? What do your customers want? How do you now receive them in such a way that they can tell that you're different? How about the other people in your life? How about the other team members at work? All right. So it's about knowing the diversity of the space that you live or you work, and how you make a meaningful contribution in all of these spaces. So I find it so useful that because it's people who make things happen. So when I say minister to the lives given, that's where your reputation and connection meet.
Amazing stuff. Doreen Baffoe is the chief strategist at Branch Out Africa. It's a leadership development consultancy. She's been talking to us about leading self in the new world of work. And this is really the first in our series for the third week